Hello and welcome. One of the most remarkable success stories of the last decade has been the rise of India. Through wars, a pandemic and global uncertainties, India is now the world's 5th largest economy and will soon be the world's 3rd largest economy by the end of this decade. Now, Viksit Bharat, or a developed India by 2047, is not just a dream, but a destiny. An India poised for the next big leap. That's the theme of the TV9 What India Thinks Today Global Summit. 20 keynotes, 30 sessions and 75 speakers. The second installment of our summit, less than a week from now, is bigger and better. We host a range of global speakers, international influencers and trendsetters invested in the India rising story.
Well, and starting today, we will be recording 6 special shows to count down to this mega event, which takes place in New Delhi on the 25th, 26th and 27th of February. And today on this show, we are going to set the stage for a subject which is one of the most important themes of this global summit. India emerging as the voice of the global south and how it compares to China in that role. Sandeep, of course, we also have with us Kartikeya Sharma and Aditya Rajkol, our colleagues, joining us to discuss this entire issue. Before I take this to Aditya and Kartikeya, I just want to, share with our viewers a couple of examples of why I believe, and a lot of other people believe, that India has definitely emerged as a strong voice of the global south. You know, for the last couple of years, Aditya, you'll bear me out on this, Prime Minister Modi, our Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar have at various multilateral forums spoken for the global south, the interest of the global south, the hardships and the challenges that these countries face. But I think what really put a stamp on it, Sandeep, is our G20 presidency.
Absolutely.
The fact that throughout that 1 year when India held the G20 presidency, all these issues pertaining to the global south constituted the leitmotif of our G20 presidency. It found a repeated mention, including the New Delhi Declaration that was adopted unanimously by all member states. And let's not forget, it was at the initiative of Prime Minister Modi that a historic measure was taken. The African Union was granted full membership of the G20 summit, something that the Prime Minister has repeatedly said is very close to his heart. And if I could just lay out one more issue, which I think in a very interesting way tells us why India has emerged as a voice of the global south. You know, India received a lot of global criticism when we continue to import Russian oil. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in fact, our oil imports went up 13 times. And not only did India take the stand that our interests and the interests of the Indian people will precede everything else, Jaishankar very famously called out the Western media's hypocrisy by saying that what New Delhi buys in a month is something that Europe buys in one afternoon.
Yes.
So the way he chided them, I think, is something that made global headlines. And why do I believe that India's step in this direction was not just in its own interest, but it actually helped further the interests of the global south? Because late last year, while speaking in London, Mr. Jaishankar said, I am waiting for the West to say thank you to India. Why did he say that? He said because of our continued oil imports from Russia, India managed to stabilize oil and gas markets, and we managed global inflation. Had it not been for that strategic purchase policy decision that we took, the entire world would have suffered. And of course, very interestingly, Sandeep, over the weekend, speaking at the Munich Security Conference, of course, Mr. Jaishankar has a way with words.
Yes.
So very cleverly, when he was asked by the journalist how India manages to balance its ties between the US and Russia, he said, well, if I'm smart enough to have multiple options, you should admire me. Yes. But you know, that light-hearted comment apart, I think India has displayed through a series of measures and policy decisions that it's taken that it is truly the voice of the global south. Kartikeya? Your thoughts?
I think, you know, India will have its challenges because China truly is not in the race for global south. I have a contrarian view. China is in race for the global north.
Right.
One. And for global south, China thinks that they are the places of investment. Either Belt and Road, if you look at the way they strategically build the ports, or if they have built their naval bases, or they have reclaimed land in South China Sea. I think they have a different approach. India wants to lead the global south because there's a continuity in Indian foreign policy despite a couple of discontinuities in Modi administration, which everyone talks about. The continuity in the foreign policy, which very few people realize under Modi, is that despite redefining our relationship with, say, for example, Israel, or talking about strategic autonomy with Russia, or having a deep science and military based understanding with France and United States of America, we have not become allies. Even Quad is not written in that language. It's non-military in nature. We have continued to put boots on ground, but under United Nations auspice,
Right.
which means that we are the largest senders of our forces, but under the United Nations. We didn't send troops to Afghanistan. We didn't do that.
We didn't send troops to Iraq either.
We didn't send troops to Iraq either.
Famously.
We built Salma Dam. There's an Indira
Yeah.
Gandhi library there. In fact, we also take care of that. The famous Mazar of Babur, the renovation
Yes.
was done by Ministry of External Affairs. So in India, that way is pretty eclectic when it comes to global south. Our priorities are actually the priorities of the poor countries. Why? Because we have undergone that phenomena in 60s and 70s, which is being taxed for not being carbon neutral, or the new technologies which the world is regulating, which is EV centric, lithium centric, or our priorities is how to get ready for a climate change challenge, because climate change is not about temperature or AC, climate change is about food security.
Absolutely, and that new phrase that the Prime Minister introduced, climate justice,
yes,
I think
and
that was a
climate
very
change is
important...
about new routes. Now Russian
yeah.
and Chinese, Russian specifically, they have weaponized the entire Arctic. Very few people know
Yeah.
that they have an Arctic force
Yes.
that has been under training for last 25 years.
Right.
They have a floating nuclear power base there. So we have our challenges. It's like when we talk about soft power, I'll give you an example, then I'll throw it to Aditya. It does not change the behavior of a neighbor.
Yeah.
How much soft power we use against Pakistan, it doesn't change Pakistan. How much soft power we used for Afghanistan and the development of the citizens, it didn't change the behavior of Taliban. So there is limitation to what we do. So global south is full of challenges, but India is poised to steer it because one, our economy is strong. We are not 1998.
Yeah.
Americans can't do that to us again. Second, we have political
By
stability.
98 you mean the Pokhran test?
Pokhran.
The
And the
aftermath of
sanctions.
that, and the
Yes.
sanctions, of course.
Second, we are politically stable. We have a powerful Prime Minister with a global connect. And third, there is consensus. We are not like divided American politics,
Right.
like
Yes.
Trump and Biden, you know, where people cannot come to a consensus. There is a unity in domestic politics on
Yes.
certain foreign affairs issue, which gives great authority to Prime Minister Modi to take tough decisions. So we are poised well,
Yeah.
but we have our challenges.
Yeah, actually, that's another segment we're going to talk about Prime Minister Modi's role in shaping it. But Aditya, you have a view on this. This is a very interesting aspect that Karthikeya raised, the fact that China is actually aspiring for the global north. It actually wants to displace the United States. Whereas I think we are very happy in doing a non-alignment plus, given the fact that our economy is, firing on all cylinders. It wants to lift the global south along with us, and that largely explains our stance, especially in the G20 summit.
Firstly, Sandeep, I don't think there's a debate when it comes to the global south. India has not been only wanting to, but India has emerged already as the voice of
Yes.
the global south. And there are numerous examples to state over the last 1 year. And as Neha pointed out, it happened during the G20 summit really, because it began with the Voice of Global South Summit,
Yes.
which India-led Prime Minister Narendra Modi reached out to all these leaders.
Right.
And, one has to understand the history. One has to understand the rapport and the connect that India shares with the countries of the global south and not China. India has a shared history with
Yes.
all these countries of colonialism, of apartheid that has happened.
Right.
So the pain is similar, the anguish is similar. And then there's a debate raging between the developed and the developing nations.
Right.
There too, India has emerged as a leader. India has prioritized the sentiments, the concerns and the demands of the global south and reached out not just to the United Nations and several other multilateral forums, but more importantly, during India's G20 presidency,
Yes.
led that effort, and finally that culminated in African Union becoming the permanent member.
Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.